Hello, welcome to Convertible Verse. Today we're talking about a car that came from one of the most romantic automotive brands on the planet, packed supercar technology into a body that looked like it belonged in a museum and still somehow couldn't survive. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already because you will not want to miss what's coming on this channel. And stay until the end of this video because we're going to uncover a government decision that quietly killed one version of this car almost overnight, and a final farewell edition so exclusive that only 33 of them were ever made for all of North America. The story behind that number is something else entirely. Also check the description below, there are some links down there worth your time. Now, imagine a sports car built around a carbon fiber tub that weighs less than most motorcycles. A mid-engine machine that can hit 60 miles per hour in under 4.5 seconds. Supercar DNA, Italian bloodlines, open-air freedom, and a price tag that was supposed to put it within reach of real enthusiasts, not just billionaires. That was the promise of the Alfa Romeo 4C Spider. And somehow, it still didn't work out the way anyone hoped. Not because it was slow, not because it was ugly. The reasons are far more complicated, far more fascinating, and honestly far more heartbreaking than most people ever talk about. This is the full story of the Alfa Romeo 4C Spider. To understand why this car even exists, you have to go back to a machine called the 8C Competizione. In 2003, Alfa Romeo unveiled a concept so stunning it stopped people cold at the motor show. When they eventually committed to a limited production run of just 1,000 cars, over 1,400 people put their names down for the coupe alone before a single one had been built. The hunger was real, the passion was undeniable. And Alfa Romeo looked at that response and thought they had cracked the code. If people are starving for an exotic Italian sports car, build one they can actually afford. That idea became the 4C. It was projected to sell 20,000 units worldwide. That number would come back to haunt them in a very painful way. The 4C made its world debut at the 2013 Geneva Motor Show, and the press reaction was electric. The design pulled inspiration directly from the legendary Alfa Romeo Tipo 33 Stradale, a 1960s racing machine widely considered one of the most beautiful cars ever created. For a production car at this price point, nothing else on the market even came close aesthetically. But the real story wasn't the looks, it was what was hiding underneath the skin. Alfa Romeo built the 4C around an ambitious philosophy, a no-compromise driver's car that would use lightweight materials instead of raw power to deliver a visceral experience. The carbon fiber monocoque tub weighed just 143 pounds on its own. The entire car tipped the scales at barely over a ton. For context, your average family SUV weighs nearly 3 times that. That obsession with weight was the whole point, and it was unlike anything else available at that price. The engine they dropped into this featherweight chassis was a turbocharged 1.75-liter 4-cylinder producing 237 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. On paper, those numbers don't exactly set the world on fire. A hot hatchback can post similar figures, but raw numbers never told the whole story with this car. Because of how aggressively Alfa Romeo had stripped out the weight, that modest output translated into a power-to-weight ratio that embarrassed machines costing 3 times as much. 0 to 60 in under 4.5 seconds. A top speed of 160 miles per hour. On a winding back road with the roof panel pulled off, the experience was described by more than one journalist as genuinely unsettling in the best possible way. Raw, communicative, alive in a way that modern sports cars with all their electronic assistants had stopped being. A famous test run at the Nürburgring clocked the 4C at just over 8 minutes flat, a time that left far more expensive competition trailing behind. That kind of performance at that kind of price should have made this car a cult phenomenon, and in some circles it absolutely did. But here's where the story starts to turn. Open the door of a Porsche 718 Boxster and slide in. The interior is snug, but it's precise. Premium materials, logical layout, every switch placed exactly where you'd expect it. Now open the door of a 4C. By 2019, that cabin still had no infotainment screen worth speaking of. The audio system was basic to the point of embarrassing. The climate controls were oversized knobs that looked borrowed from a budget hatchback, and the dashboard had an awkward angular design that felt out of step with the gorgeous exterior wrapped around it. For a car that had crept up towards $70,000 in its later years, buyers were expecting something that at least matched the drama of the outside. What they got instead felt like Alfa Romeo had spent every dollar and every gram of effort on the engineering and simply run out of budget or patience before finishing the interior. And in a market where the Porsche 718 and the new Corvette were raising the bar on what a sports car could feel like inside, that gap became impossible to ignore. It didn't matter how fast the 4C was, people sat in it at dealerships, looked around, and walked back out. And the sales numbers told that story brutally clearly. Alfa Romeo had projected 20,000 units. In reality, across the United States and Europe combined over nearly 6 years of production, they sold fewer than 7,000 total. In the US alone, they moved just 406 cars in all of 2017. That's not a slow month for a niche brand, that's an alarm bell. Even accounting for the 4C's deliberately exclusive positioning, those figures were deeply troubling for a parent company, FCA, that was already under financial pressure and trying to justify every line item on the budget. The car that was supposed to announce Alfa Romeo's glorious return to America had instead become a cautionary tale about the gap between passion and commerce. Then came something that most people outside the car world never heard about, a quiet regulatory decision that essentially ended one version of this car with almost no warning. In 2018, the US government introduced a new federal safety standard, specifically around ejection mitigation, that required updated side curtain airbag systems in enclosed vehicles. The 4C Coupe with its fixed roof fell directly under that regulation. To comply, Alfa Romeo would have had to redesign significant structural elements of the car at enormous cost. For a vehicle already selling in tiny numbers with almost certainly zero profit margin, that investment simply made no sense. So rather than update it, they quietly pulled the plug on the Coupe for the American market entirely after 2018. The Spider, however, was classified differently. As a convertible, it was exempt from that specific requirement. So the open-top version lived on alone, the last survivor, carrying the nameplate by itself into 2019 and 2020 while its coupe sibling disappeared from showrooms without so much as a press release. But before the whole story ended, Alfa Romeo did something that showed they still understood exactly what this car meant. They announced one final special edition, the 4C Spider 33 Stradale Tributo. Named as a direct tribute to the legendary Tipo 33 Stradale that had originally inspired the 4C's design, this was Alfa Romeo's farewell gift to the car and the people who had believed in it. Only 33 examples were allocated to North America. 22 went to US dealers, 10 to Canada, and the final car, number 33 of 33, was set aside internally. Each one came finished in a stunning tri-coat red called Rosso Villa d'Este, with gray gold wheels and a two-tone tobacco leather and black microfiber interior. And in a first for Alfa Romeo, the carbon fiber structural tub itself was finished in red, visible, proud, a declaration. Every available performance option was included as standard: the Akrapovic exhaust system, race-tuned suspension, carbon fiber accents throughout. It was everything the 4C could be, built one last time for the people who understood it. Those 33 cars sold immediately, no surprise there. Production of the 4C officially ended in late 2019. The Spider lived on in dealer inventories into 2020, with a handful of final Tributo editions trickling out, and then it was gone. Between the US and Europe, Alfa Romeo never even sold 7,000 examples across 6 years on the market. The GTV and 8C successor models that were teased and promised were eventually canceled too, victims of corporate restructuring and the relentless push toward SUVs and crossovers that was swallowing the entire industry whole. The 4C left behind no direct replacement, no spiritual successor, no roadmap, just silence. And yet, the story doesn't end there, not really, because the cars that were built have become something Alfa Romeo never quite managed to manufacture on purpose: genuinely desirable collector pieces. Clean, low-mileage 4C Spiders have been climbing in value quietly and consistently. The 33 Stradale Tributo editions in particular have become the subject of serious interest among collectors who recognized immediately that 33 cars across an entire continent was an extraordinary number. The very things that made the 4C difficult to live with, the uncompromising ride, the sparse interior, the relentless focus on the driving experience over everything else, are exactly the things that make it worth owning now that the pressure of justifying $70,000 is off the table. The Alfa Romeo 4C Spider is the story of a car that was too pure for the market it was sold into, too raw for buyers who wanted luxury with their performance, too expensive for the diehards who would have forgiven everything, and ultimately too niche to survive inside a corporation that needed volume to stay alive. But it was also, without question, one of the most honest driver's cars of its era, a machine that reminded you what it felt like before technology started doing the driving for you. Some cars succeed by being everything to everyone. The 4C Spider succeeded by being absolutely everything to a very small group of people who will never forget what it felt like. And in the end, maybe that's exactly enough. That's the story of the Alfa Romeo 4C Spider. If you made it this far, thank you, genuinely. Drop a comment below and tell us, would you daily drive one, knowing everything you know now? And don't forget to subscribe to Convertible Verse. We've got more stories like this coming, and you do not want to miss them. Check the description for affiliate links and resources we've put together for you. We'll see you in the next one.